how do people change?
What do you mean?
Like, let's say I have a New Year's resolution.
Such as?
Eating less junk food or going to the gym. You know, typical health stuff. Basically, I want to look good for swimsuit season.
That's kind of sad.
What is?
Trying to pick up women on the beach?
Well, I didn't say it was for that.
So you're just taking Instagram pics then? That's even more sad.
Okay, well, it's just an example. Can you just go along with it, please? Can you just be cool? Please? Be cool.
Okay, well, it seems like you're talking about changing your own behavior, which is difficult. A lot of the times we know what we have to do in order to improve ourselves, but we still don't do it.
Yeah, why is that?
It's easier to do unhealthy things in the present even though we know it's bad for us in the future. Some people think it's because the future is more abstract and harder to think about, or that we're optimistic and just repeatedly deferring things to the future, thinking that we can change whenever we want to. Or that there's two versions of you, one that wants comfort and the other wants to do the harder yet healthier thing. Or one theory that I personally like is that we have a lack of empathy towards our future self. Personally, this is what I view self-love to be, not that sort of narcissistic self-indulgence and avoidance that's commonly advertised on the internet, but more so a sort of self-compassion that allows us to do what's best for our health.
Okay, so we just do things that we know are bad for us, but we want comfort. Is that it?
Not entirely. It could just be the case that you have a bad habit. Also, comfort isn't really the right word to use here. We should really be using the term net expected value, which is calculated by subtracting expected benefit from expected cost, and it just so happens to be that things that are unhealthy for us have a higher in-the-moment benefit.
Okay, so we're fighting against bad habits and a natural inclination to be unhealthy.
There's a few other factors as well, such as social norms and even other behaviors.
Wait, so what's the difference between a habit and a behavior?
Not much, it's just that habits require no thought, but a behavior can include thought. And what's interesting is that thoughts can lead to other thoughts. The same goes for emotions and actions. They all feed into each other into this cyclical loop. Here we have something called a process model of behavioral change. It basically maps out how our behavior causes us to respond to a situation, and changing any one of these stages has a trickle effect that helps us change our overall behavior. So first off, we have the situation. The situation all depends on your environment, so that's what you see, smell, and hear, but if there's any people around you, then it also involves social cues as well. Not only that, but it can involve your internal environment, so what you think or feel. The second step is attention. It's supposed that our brains actually don't pay attention to everything that's going on around us. Instead, we focus on a few important details at a time. Now, there's two paths we can take. We can either appraise or go straight to response. If we have a habit or a plan or personal rule, then we immediately respond. But if we don't have any of these things, then we appraise instead. This is where we take time to think about and interpret our current situation. The response stage is a bit confusing, but basically a response is an action, emotion, or a thought. And I know I just said that appraisal was all about thinking, so a behavioral thought would more so be a thought after a thought. Now, how we act, how we feel, or how we think will change the situation that we're in, and so the cycle starts all over again. And what's interesting is that multiple cycles can happen at the same time. If we take a look at this figure right here, we have a dilemma. A person is standing at an office lobby and they can either take the stairs or take the elevator. Now, obviously, the person can't climb stairs and ride an elevator at the same time. So what's happening here is that the person keeps juggling between the two choices and is basically stuck at the office lobby.
But why is this even happening in the first place? Why is it such a big deal for this person to ride the elevator and take the stairs?
Well, this whole time we've been talking about health, so let's just keep going along with that example. Let's say that the person has a New Year's resolution to get more exercise. Climbing the stairs would certainly help, but taking an elevator would certainly be a lot easier and would provide some instant gratification. This is why it's so important for us to focus on the future when you're trying to change your behavior, because climbing the stairs only provides future benefit, but there's also a danger in thinking too far ahead. Sometimes we like to fantasize about who we'll be, and this short-sights us of the obstacles ahead. Behavioral change requires us to mentally prepare for the inevitable obstacles we'll come across. It's sort of like your girlfriend warning you about her crazy dad before driving up to dinner. Even that small bit of preparation can help you in the long run.
Okay, so if changing any one of these stages changes how I behave, how do I do that? How do I appraise differently? How do I form habits? How do I respond to things differently?
For that, we turn to our next model. It's the exact same as before, but this time we're dealing with strategies for change. You'll also notice that there's a gray and white box. The boxes just indicate that behavioral change can either come from within or outside. Like your job might encourage your behavior to be more professional, or your stepmom might encourage you to go fucking crazy.
Dude.
That is true. Every time I go there, she just has me do her house chores and then makes me listen to the story of how she almost made it to the regional spelling bee. I swear to fuck! Anyways, situational strategies could include something like surrounding yourself with supportive friends or removing temptations. Other strategies include having quote-unquote contracts with yourself where you face a penalty for failure or a reward for succeeding. An attention strategy could be something like setting up reminders or keeping track of what you do. An appraisal strategy could include something like mindfulness or thinking about something in a more positive light or visualizing yourself 2 years from now. Now, when it comes to response, what's interesting is that suppressing an action is technically a response. Using willpower is a response, but utilizing willpower should just be a last resort since it's difficult to maintain. Lastly, we have the shortcut strategies, this dotted line in our model, the thing that bypasses appraisal. You can just think of these as habits. In order to form a habit, you can have a plan or a personal rule that makes it so that you always have to take the healthier option. And eventually, if you do this enough times, it becomes a habit that you don't even have to think about.
Okay, so if I follow some or all of these strategies, then I should be able to change, right?
Well, one thing I'd like to point out is that there are some parts of you that are much more resistant to change. These can be things like personality traits, or disposition to be emotional or logical, or even your physiology. Something like how quickly your brain sends electrical signals or how frequently your heart beats could have an influence on the decisions you make. Everyone is unique in their own different way, but that's not like a, oh, good job you, here, have a gold sticker. Every person quite literally has their own way of operating. This model tells us that we ought to use strategies, but some strategies are more effective than others. Now, some strategies are objectively worse than others, that's true, but it could also be the case that the strategy being applied isn't aligned with how a person operates. That's one of the big problems about having internet self-help gurus. It's that their advice may not necessarily be compatible with the audience member. Regardless, they still spit out all the same advice to everyone. So this is where the phrase know thyself quite literally comes into play. There are 1,000 different strategies you could apply for every aspect of the model, and some of these strategies may have a universal benefit for every human being on the planet Earth. Regardless, it wouldn't hurt your chances if you took some time to take some tests like the Big Five or FFMQ and sort of realize what sort of personality you have or how mindful you are, and then sort of go on from there. But you also have to realize that there's other confounding factors as well. A lot of people have gone through traumatic experiences that affect their ability to objectively appraise a situation. Some people are just having a rough go at it, and while it's perfectly natural, it could result in a negative bias in some sort. So, if you're taking one of these tests that I listed off earlier, could skew your results entirely. That's the difficult thing about self-diagnosing yourself, is that it's an inherently complicated process that requires you to look objectively at who you are and what you do.
Just putting the hand puppets and silly banter aside, this video, and you should assume that any other video you watch on the internet, is very basic surface level self-help. The intent of this video is to help you do something simple like go to the gym or eat more fruit or watch less TV. One of the big reasons that a lot of these internet gurus have that big medical disclaimer saying that none of what they say constitutes medical advice is just to protect themselves legally, but also psychology is a huge huge freaking field of study, and almost none of it is about treatment. And that's because we have very little information to go off of. We're very much still stuck in the early stages of figuring it all out. Like, we're pumping out proposals on what constitutes an emotion still. 90% of what I read is just statistics. All the quotes you're seeing here were probably just pulled from the same one page out of a 10-page article. We're very much operating off of theory, not laws. So if you're someone who's struggling with anything more serious than like trying to work out, then please go seek help. This video isn't for you. None of the videos are. You're not going to get it right on your own. You're just not. So please, if you're actually struggling, turn off the screen and schedule an appointment with a therapist. And if you can't do that, then go find a support group. It doesn't have to be in person. There are plenty that exist online. Who knows? Maybe there are actual professionals there who can give you the individualized help that you deserve, but the solution to your problems isn't going to be in some YouTube video.